The American dream often evokes images of manicured lawns, white picket fences, and suburban stability. However, across the vast landscape of the United States, there are pockets of deep neglect where that dream has transformed into a survivalist reality. In these forgotten corners of the country, the term developing world conditions is no longer a hyperbolic comparison but a daily lived experience. These are towns where the departure of industry, the collapse of local tax bases, and decades of systemic disinvestment have created a vacuum. In this vacuum, infrastructure crumbles, clean water becomes a luxury, and the local economy exists in a state of permanent hibernation. One of the most jarring indicators of this decline is the real estate market. In a nation where the median home price in many metros has soared beyond reach, these towns offer houses for the price of a used sedan. Homes selling for approximately $23,000 are not uncommon in these areas, yet these price tags are rarely seen as opportunities for investment. Instead, they serve as warning signs. These properties often come with boarded windows, failing foundations, and environments where basic municipal services like trash collection, paved roads, and reliable electricity are no longer guaranteed. From the rusted shells of the Illinois River towns to the deeply impoverished stretches of the Alabama Black Belt, these communities face challenges that mirror those found in nations with far fewer resources. Food deserts are the norm, healthcare facilities are hours away, and the cycle of generational poverty is reinforced by a lack of education and employment. This list explores 10 such towns where the cost of entry is low, but the cost of living is unimaginably high. 10 U.S. towns with third-world living conditions, where homes sell for $23,000. 1. Gloucester, Mississippi. Why number 1? Widely regarded as the most economically depressed town in the American South with a visible collapse of basic infrastructure, focuses on a history of timber industry decline that left nearly half the population living below the federal poverty line with almost no local job prospects. Consistently low property values reflect a housing stock that is often aged and lacking modern utilities, with homes frequently hitting the market for $23,000 or less. 2. Whitehall, Alabama. Why number 2? A classic example of extreme rural poverty where residents struggle with basic sanitation issues typically found in developing nations. Strong evidence of straight piping and failing septic systems means raw sewage often pools in yards after heavy rains because the town cannot afford municipal sewers. Real estate here is incredibly affordable, with land and small structures selling for bottom-dollar prices, but the lack of functional plumbing makes them nearly uninhabitable. 3. Allenville, Missouri. Why number 3? A standout case of geographic and economic isolation where time seems to have stopped several decades ago. Not mainstream in terms of population size, but the town is famous for its lack of paved roads and the prevalence of mobile homes in severe states of decay. Excellent value only for those looking for extreme isolation, as there are virtually no businesses or public services within the town limits. 4. Marianna, Arkansas. Why number 4? While not a large metropolitan area, this town is locally famous for a level of urban decay that rivals the most neglected neighborhoods in America. Often ranked among the poorest places in the country, it suffers from a total lack of investment and a crumbling downtown that consists mostly of boarded-up brick shells.
Smaller footprint than neighboring cities, but the housing market is flooded with $23,000 properties that nobody wants to buy due to the high crime and lack of jobs. 5. Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Why number 5? Pennsylvania's most visible example of the Rust Belt collapse, with a shrinking population that has left thousands of homes empty. Great for historical interest, but terrible for modern living, as the aging infrastructure was built for a population 3 times larger than the current one. Lower in quality of life compared to other Pennsylvania cities because of a severe opioid crisis and a tax base that is too small to fix broken water lines. 6. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Why number 6? Strong industrial past that has completely evaporated, leaving behind a city that feels like a hollowed-out version of its former self. However, it is often viewed as one of the most dangerous small cities in America, and the physical state of many neighborhoods resembles a disaster zone. ranked lower than other affordable spots because the cost of security and repairs often outweighs the $23,000 purchase price of a local home. 7. Selma, Alabama. Why number 7? Buzzworthy for its historical significance, but struggling with a current reality of extreme poverty and crumbling public works, ranked lower because it has yet to establish a reliable economic standard for its residents, with many condemned elsewhere. The disparity between the town's famous bridge and the dilapidated housing just blocks away is a stark reminder of the systemic neglect in the region.
8. East St. Louis, Illinois. Why number 8? Classic case of a city that has been effectively abandoned by its state and federal government for decades. Often seen as the gold standard for urban decay, with massive sections of the city having no streetlights, no trash pickup, and no functional police force. Homes sell for $23,000 or less because the risk of fire or theft is extremely high and the surrounding environment is often contaminated by old industrial waste. 9. Camden, New Jersey. Why number 9? Hardy row homes that were once the pride of the working class are now largely vacant or in a state of advanced structural failure. Inconsistent quality across different neighborhoods means you might find a decent house next to 3 that are literally falling into the street. Generally less loved by investors compared to nearby Philadelphia because the local economy has been stagnant for nearly 50 years with no signs of recovery. 10. Cairo, Illinois. Why number 10? Widely considered the closest thing to a ghost town in the Midwest that still officially has a small population living in it. The living conditions are among the worst in the country, with no grocery stores, no hospitals, and a town center that looks like a movie set for a post-apocalyptic film. Ranked at the bottom of the list, because while you can buy a house for $23,000, you are buying into a community that is physically and economically disappearing. The economic reality of the $23,000 home. The price of a house in these towns is not a reflection of its size or its potential, but rather a measurement of the despair surrounding it. In a healthy market, a house is an asset that builds wealth. In these 10 locations, a house is often a liability. When a home sells for $23,000, the buyer is essentially purchasing the right to pay property taxes on a structure that may cost more to repair than it will ever be worth. This is the poverty trap of the American interior. In places like Gloucester, Mississippi, or Whitehall, Alabama, the lack of economic mobility is a direct result of the collapse of the local tax base. Without property taxes from valuable homes or sales taxes from thriving businesses, the local government cannot afford to maintain the roads, the sewers, or the schools. This creates a downward spiral where the bad conditions drive away anyone with the means to leave, which further lowers property values and reduces the tax base even more. Living without basic necessities. The term third world conditions is specifically used because of the failure of infrastructure. In the Alabama Black Belt, the soil is a dense clay that does not absorb water easily. Without a municipal sewage system, traditional septic tanks fail. This leads to a situation where residents have raw sewage backing up into their homes or pooling in their backyards. This is not a problem of the 19th century. It is a reality in 2026. Healthcare is another area where these towns mirror developing nations. In Cairo, Illinois, the nearest full-service hospital is over 30 minutes away in another state. For someone without a reliable vehicle, a manageable health issue can quickly become a life-threatening emergency. The same applies to food. These are food deserts where the only place to buy groceries is often a dollar store or a gas station, where fresh produce is non-existent and prices are high. Environmental hazards and industrial legacy. Many of these towns, particularly in the Rust Belt like Johnstown or East St. Louis, are suffering from the toxic remains of their industrial past. The soil in these areas is often contaminated with heavy metals like lead or arsenic from old factories and smelting plants. For a family living in a $23,000 fixer-upper, the cost of making that home safe for children is astronomical. The cheap price tag does not account for the environmental remediation required to live there without long-term health risks. The human cost of disinvestment. Ultimately, the tragedy of these towns is the people who are left behind. Most of these communities have an aging population that is too old to start over elsewhere, or a younger generation that lacks the educational resources to compete in a modern economy. The schools in these areas are often underfunded and understaffed, leading to a cycle where the next generation is ill-equipped to bring new industry to the town. When we look at the list of these 10 towns, it serves as a map of American neglect. It shows that while the country as a whole may be wealthy, that wealth is not distributed in a way that ensures even a basic standard of living for all its citizens. A $23,000 home might seem like a bargain on a real estate website, but for the people living in these towns, it is the price of a life lived in the shadows of a crumbling dream.